My own opinions about where is Anne Frank are very divided. I genuinely don't know how I feel about this. There are some really strong aspects of this film, and I think there were some really poor decisions made. The title as well is really irritating me because there's not a question mark in the title. I know rhetorical questions sometimes don't need question marks. It doesn't feel like a rhetorical question to me. I don't know. It's really bothering me. The film was released in 2021. It's an animated feature film directed by Ari Folman. It's written by Folman, and we have Ruby Stokes voicing the character of Kitty. We also have Emily Carey voicing the character of Anne Frank. And Kitty, Anne Frank's diary, comes to life in the present day. And initially, I thought the whole thing was going to be set in the present day, but actually, a lot of it is set during the time of Anne Frank in the 40s, during the Second World War, and we see Kitty interacting with Anne Frank, and we get to see a lot of Anne Frank's life come to life, and I thought that was a really good decision. Initially, I didn't like the present-day scenes with Kitty, but then when we get to see the effects that Anne Frank has had, and there are buildings named after her and schools named after her, it's kind of interesting to see that legacy, and Kitty was experiencing this for the first time. And I think that aspect was interesting, but I didn't like Kitty's relationships with certain characters in the present day, and I thought the ending was really stupid. I won't explain what happens at the end, just in case you decide to watch this, but I thought it was definitely not the right way to end this film, so I really didn't care for that at all. But we do have some interesting messages about Anne Frank's legacy and some different perspectives as well, so that's pretty interesting. The main narrative revolves around the fact that Anne Frank's diary is actually stolen, but it's stolen by Kitty, who comes to life in the present day, and it makes sense in the context of the film. I think they did a decent job of bringing the story to life in that aspect, and a lot of it involves Kitty being an actual character in Anne Frank's time, as indeed the diary would have been for Anne Frank. As we know, she wrote to Kitty as if she were a friend, and this is what we have. And this means that we have a lot of opportunities for learning. And I think this is going to be really brilliant for younger children, or children in general, or indeed anybody who knows nothing about Anne Frank, to learn about that period in history and the people involved. And the Nazis look terrifying. They have a very interesting character design in this, and they do look very, very scary and almost not human in a way. And I think it's an interesting design, and it works really well. And I think this is a great way to learn about Anne Frank and what her life was like during the war, and also ultimately what happened to Anne Frank and her family. We don't get to see, thankfully I guess, we don't get to see any harrowing details of ultimately what happened to Anne Frank. The way Kitty learns about this involves the present day, and I thought that worked quite well. I won't say exactly how she finds out about what happened to Anne Frank, because obviously Kitty doesn't know what happened to Anne Frank because Anne stopped writing in her diary. Kitty can only know what Anne Frank wrote about, and I think the way they were able to present what happened was very well written. I think that worked really well, and that definitely gave us value in the present day, because obviously Kitty couldn't learn about that in the past. But as I said, there were some decisions in the present day that I just don't think worked very well at all. I won't go into too much detail, but it is mostly involving the end of the film and also relationships that Kitty has with certain characters. I just don't think these were very good decisions at all. And I think they were trying to make it more meaningful and to give it more substance. But to me, it just didn't work. So in general, I feel like the narrative was a good idea. I feel like there are a lot of opportunities for learning. There are a lot of different perspectives here. And Kitty as a character is very likeable. She's a very likeable protagonist. Also, the animation of the diary is so beautiful. The animation in general, I don't love the animation style. I don't hate it, but I'm not completely in love with it. The other thing that's worth mentioning as well is that the accents are mostly English, which is obviously surprising. I didn't expect that. That's just something that's worth bearing in mind if you give this a watch. Do I recommend it? I guess so. I think so. It's not perfect, but actually it was better than I anticipated. And although there are some bad decisions, in my opinion, in general, I think it's a good opportunity for learning, particularly for younger children, as I said, who might just be starting to learn about who Anne Frank is, and indeed learning about the Second World War and Nazis. And I think the story works quite well with the narrative structure. While I don't love the animation style, I think it might appeal to some people. And if one of my biggest issues is the lack of question mark in the title, then I think it's done not too bad at all. It's not perfect, but it did exceed my expectations. And if it sounds like something that would appeal to you, then I'd say Where is Anne Frank might be worth checking out.